Okay, Sean Carscadden, thank you so much for hopping on with me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
To begin with, perhaps you can talk a bit about yourself, why you wanted to run in this election, why you wanted to run as the Liberal candidate for Wellington-Halton Hills North.
Yeah, I've been interested in invested in politics for quite a long time. The Liberal Party has always resonated most with me when I do the CBC political spectrum quizzes that they have to see where you land. I typically land to the center, slightly left of center, which is where the traditional Liberal Party is meant to reside on the spectrum. So just over the years, even through in the military, there's some pretty lean years when I was in there in the 90s. That was under Chrétien's government. Um, I still could see the bigger picture of what we're trying to do and what the party was trying to do for the government and for the country. So yeah, it was difficult within the organization, but certainly I could see the bigger picture and what they were trying to do. So yeah, I've always typically leaned liberal, and this last little while has just been so polarizing
Hmm.
that it's got into a few different Facebook battles and trying to defend some of the liberal policies that I believe in that are good for the country, things like dental care and pharmacare for people that don't have access to them, and I would get all sorts of different perspectives that were coming at me online, and it got to a point where I kind of lost a really good friend, and it upset me quite a bit.
Hmm.
Um, we went into a direct message because I thought he must be hurting, and uh, yeah, I ended up having to block him and saying like, I can't believe this is where we've come, but if you want to get back in touch with me, here's my cell phone number. But it was really unfortunate, and
Hmm.
that was right around the time that I got the letter from the Liberal Party saying, "Hey, we're looking for volunteers, and if anybody knows a candidate, then bring them forward." So, whenever Lloyd Longfield, he's been my member of parliament for the time that I've lived in Guelph, and
Hmm.
with the rezoning now, I live in the south end of the city. So, when I realized there was a vacancy, then I put my name in to ask some questions and sent my CV, and the next thing you know, I'm the Liberal candidate.
I hope you don't mind exploring what you just talked about for a minute about, sort of losing friends over, or at least a friend over protecting or defending liberal policy. I'm wondering in this specific instance, how much of that was about policy, how much of that was about the previous liberal leader?
I think that it was more to do with the previous administration. There's a
Hmm.
lot of people looking back on I mean, some people are characterizing the last 10 years. I'm sure if you're following anyone on Facebook that our country has been destroyed, where, COVID happened. There's been a global financial crisis. There's logistical problems that have been born of that. There's housing problems that have been born of that from the slowdown in housing and the migration of people being able to work from home and work remotely from the office. So there's a lot of things that have conspired to create the challenges that we're in right now.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just find it a little bit disingenuous the way that it's getting represented rather simplistically. And I try and just maybe bring my perspective at least. And obviously, not everybody's going to agree with it. I'm quite enjoying some of the dialogue that's happening now. There's the same kinds of conversations happening on social media now that I'm a candidate
Hmm.
within the riding. So yeah, it's like I've been forged by fire for the last few years, and now I'm being able to do it as the candidate for Liberal Party of Canada.
Well, for candidates like you, I find you enjoy like a unique position in that um you're running as one of the members of a party that is presently in power, has been in power for 10 years. You, as a representative, though, have not been part of that party dynamic. You're asking voters to send you there and join this 10-year project of the Liberal Canadian government. I'm curious when you're thinking about that, and perhaps when you're having some of these colorful conversations with people, how are you pitching this as like a benefit in terms of like sending a new guy to an old government, or are you phrasing that more as like this is a great opportunity to reset. Perhaps you like some stuff the liberals have done, but perhaps some we can send somebody new like me who can offer some outside perspective.
I think it's both of those things. I think having some fresh blood that's a traditional kind of centrist liberal. I believe in moving things forward, and most of the policies that I'm seeing Mark Carney announcing are things that I find resonate with me, and I think that they'll resonate with the people in the community. Um, the I think having somebody with my background that's got a military background where I was able to get rise to the rank of major before I left. If I'd stayed in past my 20 years, I was probably going to move 3 times in 4 years, and then subsequently get promoted out of flying, or maybe 2 years of flying left. So it just the stage of my life that I was at. I've got at the time I had 3 and 5 year old boys, and my wife is an artist. She loved what I was doing. She respected what it was to be in the military, but it was just time for something new. So I think bringing someone with that background in to represent the riding, then that's going to be another breath of fresh air. I certainly believe in leadership. I believe in accountability. I believe in working together, understanding the issues and making sure that they're being fully looked at instead of just glossed over to try and get the next vote, I guess. I guess that's all going to be new stuff for me as well.
And
So I think that, sorry, go ahead.
well, I was gonna say you're still a pilot. That's your profession.
Yeah, yeah. I work for Ornge, the Ontario Air Ambulance System, and they have taken some personal days for the last part of the campaign. I'm up in Moosonee as the backup pilot right now. So
Oh wow.
whenever the ice road to the island is no longer passable by the ambulance, then they need the helicopter to go back and forth.
Right, right.
And in those shoulder seasons between the winter ice road and the summer river being passable, then we have a fifth pilot up here just in case somebody gets sick. And then my job would be to jump in and fly. It didn't feel right, given the promises that the Liberal Party has made, starting with Prime Minister Trudeau's leadership to promise to the Indigenous people that we would take care of them better than the government typically had or traditionally had.
Hmm.
It didn't feel right leaving them short-staffed to try and scramble and fill a spot up here for a pilot for a week when I can talk to you from Zoom.
Sure. I think we appreciate that. The other question I had was because I think we kind of lit past it before I was able to clarify. What branch of the Canadian Forces were you in?
So I was in the Air Force.
Okay.
In Canada, we're just one force. Every pilot is a member of the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
So although I was an Air Force pilot, I was seconded, if you will, to Army bases. I supported the Army my whole career,
Right.
uh,
Interesting.
and it was really interesting actually. There were guys that you get focused and just like focused on your goals. You've got training requirements, you've got currency requirements, and you can kind of get distracted or pulled towards your own training needs.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I tried to do my whole career was to make sure that, I mean, flying around an empty helicopter when you're flying at 15 feet above the treetops or riverbeds is fun, but it's also easier because you don't have a fully loaded helicopter.
Right.
So I would try and get if I was typically a liaison officer to a unit while I was in my time in Petawawa. And so if I knew it was coming up that we had a Friday afternoon multi-ship training mission going on, then I'd try and get 16 troops to jump in the back and just have a fun afternoon flying in a helicopter and being our self-loading ballast so that the helicopter's a little heavier and we had to pay a little more attention to how we flew it. Um,
Mm.
there's some other interesting things that happened. When I joined, we were just retiring the Twin Huey, and I think that was the last squadron to transition to the Griffin.
Okay.
And there was an interesting difference between how the torque was measured, how much power you could pull with the aircraft. The Griffin had a torque sleeve, which was very precise, and so a lot of the pilots that had flown the Twin Huey were over torquing by they were just they were causing maintenance to do some extra work because they were flying it the same way that they flew the Huey. But I was lucky. I just came straight onto the Griffin. So they sent me down as a young lieutenant to be the liaison officer for the guns, the 2RCHA. And when I
Okay.
got there, they were so dismissive. They were like, "What are you doing here? Like we don't need the Griffin. You can't do anything for us." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa! Like I'm brand new, and I need to understand what you guys do so that I can help you." And like, "Well, you can't even sling the gun." And I went, "How much does the gun weigh?" And they told me, and I'm like, "We can sling the gun." And they're like, "Really?" And so I go back, and my major at the time was an awesome guy. He knew exactly what I was going to do, but he was just like, "Yeah, go. There's the book. Go figure it out." And we put everything in place and had a big thing. They took a picture of the gun in the air, and then sent it up to higher headquarters. And I mean, their world blew up a little bit, but I got some good credibility with the unit that I was supporting, and they were super excited that they could, in fact, sling the gun with the Griffin helicopter.
I hope some of our listeners enjoyed this insight into life in the forces and helicopter talk. But I would like to bring this back to political talk,
Of course.
which is, the riding you're running in Wellington-Halton Hills North, very strong conservative incumbent in Michael Chong, and I've talked about this with other candidates. He's well liked, admired even by people who aren't conservatives. He's a formidable opponent. To look at this from the other side, we talked about you asking to voters to send you to join a government in motion. Why should voters perhaps reject somebody who they probably understandably feel has done well for the riding, represented the riding well, and try someone new? Why vote Sean instead of Michael this time?
I think that the most important thing that I can bring that might be worth voting for me is a seat at the table where they're making the plans and making the decisions. I think that everything that I've heard is has been pretty positive about Michael Chong. My style isn't to attack somebody else's record. He's been well liked. I've got nothing to say against that. But I think with all of the announcements and all of the plans that are being made, I think there are some specific issues that are going to touch the people of Wellington-Halton Hills North. I've had good response from some of the agricultural community that's spoken to me about the supply management and protections that are in place through this tariff war. It's going to be I don't think it's going to be just a minute. It's
Mm,
really hard to predict just how far this is going to go and how difficult it's going to get. But we've announced, Mark Carney's announced support to the agricultural industry. Another thing that I've seen firsthand, I was a corporate helicopter pilot for a little while, and I used to fly some of the developers that owned some of the land around Toronto and the GTA, and they would look down and see all the green space and go, "Why aren't we building more houses?" And there's a part of me that was going, like, you realize that we do need to feed the people that live in those houses. Like, we have
right.
farmland that is some of the best farmland in the country, and so these announcements of building 500,000 houses a year. I think it needs to be done carefully. It needs to be
Mm.
done in consultation with the community that we live in Wellington-Halton Hills North. And I think that having someone at that table to advocate for those needs while they're making the decisions and making the plans is going to be better than having someone in the opposition that can then challenge them or try and fix them after the fact or bring them to yeah, you know what I mean.
Sure.
Having a voice at the table is going to be proactive rather than reactive.
I'm curious though, and this gets into like sort of the issue with incumbency, in that I think there's a lot of new plans that are being discussed with, new leader in Mr. Carney, but I think a lot of voters are going to be saying, well, liberals have been in power for 10 years. I guess how do you overcome, I mean, how do you sort of shake things up and convince people that they can invest in these new ideas and that these new ideas will hopefully bear fruit this time? I guess it's a question about sort of shaking off apathy about what has been done so far.
Yeah, I can appreciate the promises. Some of the promises that were made, a lot of them have been kept for sure. And there's some that I'm sure people are disappointed that they didn't come through. I know that there's an attribution of the rising price of houses and the affordability crisis that we're in. Um, I totally understand it. Mark Carney has been through two separate crises, both in Canada and in England, and his reputation, his qualifications with economics, he's the right guy for this moment in time. And we've already seen the way that he's handling his conversations with President Trump. And I think that he's showing a strong unified front. And I think that the energy is just a lot different than it was in the previous administration. I think that we're going
Mm,
to bring the provinces together. It seems like that's happening pretty well across the board. And that's going to be our best strength. It's always our best strength when we can work together.
hmm. The flip side of that is, though, one of the things I'm just speaking as a political observer, one of the things I'm kind of wondering about is there is a feeling of, at least in this moment, of like not wanting to upset things too much, of not wanting to like go too radical in sort of like new ideas. And we've sort of seen this in Mr. Carney's move to, repeal the consumer carbon tax and sort of draw back some of the more progressive policy that was introduced under Mr. Trudeau's tenure. Uh, I guess to put this sort of delicately, is there a way that somebody like Mr. Carney, who's like background as a banker, I think is key towards like moving towards stability, but how can we I guess shake things up to try and find new solutions while at the same time like embracing stability? I think that's something when we look at what's happened in the United States the last 2 years, people embraced stability under Joe Biden and then immediately rejected it and returned Donald Trump to office. So I guess how do we pivot and change while also still trying to be moderate and centered, I guess, if that's even possible.
Yeah, we actually just had a meeting that dealt with that exact question. There's a lot of people going, well, it seems like you're switching approaches or maybe abandoning some promises that we've made, about things like carbon caps and things like that. And the answer is very clearly that you can do both things at the same time. We have resourceful Canadians. We have great institutions. We've got the University of Guelph that is digging deep into real solutions to get best practices out of farming. And I'm learning more and more about just how much that is permeated into our excellent farmers that live in the riding. So I think that we can address. I think that's the beauty of the Liberal government is that we're the ones that put those promises and commitments into place. And so, in going after the strong, unified Canada, in going after, um, you know, processing our resources and selling our finished products rather than shipping our raw goods to other places and then buying them back. People have been talking about wood that way. They've been talking about oil that way. And I just had a great conversation this morning about agriculture is just as important. So the field to table or farm to table approach, if you look at the announcement for the agricultural sector, there's a lot of money that's been identified. Number one, to protect the farmers and get them through this period of time. Number two, to bring some of that processing capacity into the country, and why not into Wellington-Halton Hills North? We've got the centers of excellence in the agricultural system, the Aggie system in U of G, and we've got some of the best farmland around, and people taking care of the soil and all the things that you listen to or you watch a documentary about poor farming practices. That's not here. We've got some very, very competent, excellent, educated farmers that are running their multi-million dollar corporations,
Hmm.
and they love their land. They love and are proud of how they're contributing to society.
Hmm. Um, you mentioned you're a Guelph resident. You've lived in Guelph. Is there, in terms of like looking out to the broader riding, this is I think people underestimate how vast Wellington Halton Hills North is, from Acton to Guelph and Foots Lynch, Rockwood, Centre Wellington, Fergus, all points in between. Um, is this, I guess, from your point of view, what are sort of like the commonalities that connect this riding and the people in it? And how do you, as a Guelphite, reach someone? I don't know if Actonite is the right word, but that sounds like a compound that. a James Bond villain is trying to procure. But trying to get these like across municipalities and all these various residents who are part of like a diverse set of communities. What are some of the commonalities?
Uh, So a thing that I didn't realize would be such a benefit for me in this riding and in my upbringing. I didn't grow up in the area, but I grew up in a very agricultural area southeast of Ottawa, and both of my grandfathers were farmers. My grandfather had been a pilot in World War II, and when the war was over, he bought one of the airfields and turned it into a potato farm. And my other grandfather had a dairy farm. And so I grew up around farming. I was you could say the tourist farmer. So my mom would rent me out to my uncle up in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'd chuck bales for him. So I get I get the farming community. It's something that I grew up in, and I can see that happening around the Wellington-Halton Hills area for sure. I've been traveling a lot through it. I used to work up in Borden as a reservist when I did move to Guelph, so like I went up Highway 124, so I was going through most of these communities regularly. And my wife and I like to take her out on motorcycle rides to go up and especially around the lower end Fergus. There's some lovely restaurants that we go explore there for date nights. I think that what I see when I'm in those communities, and like the double-edged sword of progress is you've got your quaint community, you've got the beautiful downtown. People are so proud of it, and then they're seeing the encroachment of people that are moving out of the city and coming
Right.
in and buying up the land or building hobby farms, and it's a tug of war between like progress, if you will, and preservation of what is our the traditional. Um, Towns and the people that live in them, like they're close communities. And
Sure.
I think there's probably commonality both positively and negatively that might resonate with people. But I do understand it, and I think that at the end of the day, people are proud of their communities, and I look forward to meeting them and getting to know them better and understanding their specific issues and seeing how it can help as a member of parliament.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground so far, but I always ask every candidate if there's like one issue in particular that before the election is over, you want to make sure that you've like really chewed to the bone on it. As you're sort of packing up the supplies and the signs on April 29th, you want to be thinking, what's one election issue that you're glad that you got a chance to talk about?
That's an interesting one. I think. Uh, I mean, I'm learning an awful lot about the issues that face the people of Wellington-Halton Hills North. I think that I'm heartened to see some of the announcements, the policy announcements that I believe are going to support the region. One of the things near and dear to my heart is two things. Number one is support to the military. No matter the government, we've had a commitment as a NATO member to get to 2% GDP spent towards our military expenditures, and we've never been close. Right now, when I talk to my colleagues, certainly if somebody's applying for a job with Ornge, I'll do some background checks, and that's a nice time for me to catch up and see what's new. And they're hurting in the military. They're understaffed. It's something that I'd like to see us do a better job at. Related to that, one of the things that happened to me was I always had medical care. We had a base hospital. My wife didn't have medical care, and so we almost lost our son.
Hmm.
First time pregnancy, my wife thought she's tired, she's pregnant, didn't really have a family doctor to check up with it, and then she had a feeling, went to the hospital, and he was born 2 hours later, an emergency C-section,
Wow.
2 pounds. That was in Fredericton.
Wow.
And the Dr. Everett Chalmers of the hospital, thank you. Uh, anyway, like that's something that I think that we could do better for the military and their families. And I think that Mark Carney's plan for the military I found really heartening. There's a lot of meat in there that I can hold them accountable to. Um, and I think that it's something that, especially with what's going on south of the border, we need to be a little more self-reliant and make
Right.
sure that we're contributing to our partnership. We do have a partnership in NORAD. And if we're always not being the partner that they need, that gives a lot of ammunition for someone to say, well, hey, you're under our umbrella anyway. So let's get out from under that umbrella and let's make our military strong as we're building Canada strong. The
Hmm.
second thing is being an air ambulance pilot. I get to see our medical system across the province. I get to see some of the Indigenous communities up north based out of Kenora or Thunder Bay when I'm filling holes in the schedule up there. And I think that as far as the federal government is able to, because there are provincial jurisdictions in healthcare, we definitely need to put more emphasis on making sure that everybody's able to get a doctor. I've got some interesting comments that I've got from my Facebook group that I joined that I'm definitely going to take to heart about some of the restrictions that happened during COVID and whether those still need to be in place.
Hmm.
Um, there's an awful lot of work. I always love conversations with my Uber drivers, and it's one of the benefits I get from traveling so often. Um, and if I met a guy who was from Kabul, and he was an internal medicine doctor, and he's got a great
Hmm.
plan for getting his wife and him out of Uber driver economy and into the medical
Right.
system, but it's taking a long time, and yeah. Anyway, I'm sure we can do better. I'm sure there's a way for us to do better, and I'd love to be part of that solution as well.
Well, Sean, thank you for taking time to talk about some of that today. But before we go, I have to ask the most essential question for any campaign, which is where can people learn more about you and your campaign?
Well, we got a brand new office that we've set up on Gordon Street in South Guelph. I think it's really important to have a presence there for so many people whose ridings has changed and they're not aware of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to come and see us, just come up above Cabin Coffee at 1467, I believe, Gordon Street. That office is getting assembled today, and the official opening is tomorrow. SeanCarscadden.liberal.ca will have links to help if you're interested. Financially support. I didn't realize the business of campaigning was such a thing, but I certainly would be grateful for any donation if anyone's got the ability to do so. And if you want to sign, all the links are at that space. Um, we don't have a proper website, but the my bio is on that SeanCarscadden.liberal.ca.
All right, perfect. Well, we will have to leave it there, I'm afraid, but still at least a couple more weeks to campaign, and I guess we will see you out there. But Sean Carscadden, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.